Hi, I'm Caitlin Danko, joining Canadian author Áine Humble to talk about her new book, Hooking Skies, which was released in January. The early reception for the book has been great, and now we have a few reader questions for Áine to answer. Thanks for joining me, Áine.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here again with you.
So, the first question that we have is sort of a chicken and egg question. One reader wants to know what came first, the sky or the subject? In these rugs, some skies are abstract and others are naturalistic. So she wonders.
This is an interesting question, and it's almost a little hard to answer because the focus of these rugs is on the skies in large part. Um, I would guess for many people, the subject matter comes first, and the sky might also be specifically envisioned at the same time or developed later. And I'll give you a few examples of this. For some people, it was very clear right from the start that they were going to focus on the sky. Um, and that was especially if they were working from a reference source, such as a photograph or a painting. They knew they were going to hook the sky in exactly the same way in which it appeared in the reference material. So for those rugs, I might see the sky kind of coming first or coming at the same time as the idea for the rug. And then they set about finding the technique that worked the best for them, whether that was painting the wool or hooking two strands of different plied wool yarn together, and so on. A couple of them used painting techniques or stained glass rug hooking techniques to create these beautiful, beautiful sunsets. And then others, the technique they used emerged over time, such as Nancy Thunn's Road to Uluru rug, which has a very vibrant, high contrast sky. And she created rules for how the sky would develop, but noted that those rules sometimes changed as she progressed through the rug. And then there are different kind of groups to consider. Some people worked from a reference image, but as they started working on the rug, they realized I need to change the sky. The sky is not working from the original image I wanted to hook. Some of them created a stormy sky instead of a blue sky because I thought it added more vibrancy. And Vicky Cameron's Stonehenge rug is an example of that. And other people added clouds to a really big blue sky to make the big blue sky look more interesting, such as Janine Bruscu's in her Bar Harbor Kiss one. And then Dwight Gallagher was another person. I don't think he had a reference image to start off with, but he had an idea for a house. And he started with the house, and it had a purple door. And as he hooked the field in around the house, he realized what kind of sky he needed to have. So that was something that emerged for him. And then for people who hooked abstractly, I probably need to ask them more directly about their process, about which came first, the chicken or the egg kind of question. I can envision a process where those things happen together. And I'll give you one good example. Barb Murray's amazing Pit Pond rug, which documents or said like in memory of this mining disaster that happened in her town in 1958. Her idea for the rug emerged out of a call for submissions for an exhibit called Our Town or My Town from the Rug Hooking Museum of North America. So she got the idea to hook about her town first from the museum. Then then it quickly came to her that the only thing that she could really focus on was the mining disaster. And then her ideas for the abstract concepts in her sky were influenced by a song she had heard that were called These Are Green Hills Now. It was influenced by also images she had seen of clouds that looked a little heavenly and so on. Laura Pierce is another one who hooked a parallelogram kind of sky in her Golden Gate sunset. And she was influenced to hook that kind of sky after reading an article in Rug Hooking magazine that was called, it was about a stylized way of hooking. So I think these last two examples, for me, highlight the real importance of the really helpful articles that are written in Rug Hooking Magazine and in other publications, and also the challenges that, sometimes a museum or a guild will set for its members that encourage them to hook a rug that they would never have thought of hooking. So that's my long answer to that question.
Yeah, with that question, I just imagine that the answer varies as much as the rug hookers do. Like there's
Yeah.
so many ways to approach these rugs that have fantastic skies. Okay, our next question is a little bit more technical.
Mm-hmm.
One reader said, I want to needle felt over some parts of a hooked sky to give a soft circle around a moon, which for this rug is going to be a snow moon, and to
Mm-hmm.
soften clouds. Do you have any suggestions or comments about this?
I love it when people add in different techniques into their hooked rugs. And there's one rug in this book that is called After the Storm, and it's by Heather Gordon, and it's in the stormy section. But she wanted to represent what a sky looks like immediately after a storm has passed through, and she did use needle felted roving over the sun for more of a diffused effect. And so maybe this person's question emerges from seeing that particular rug. Um, I don't have any expertise in that area. I've never needle felted, but I would really like to try it. But I do note, so there's this book that came out in 2021. Can you see it? Am I holding it up well there?
Mm-hmm.
So that's Hooked, The Art of Hooked Rug Landscapes by Molly Cosgrove. And there was a short section in here about needle felting. So maybe the person who asked this question might want to look at that reference material as well.
Yes, I wonder, as the curator and author for this book, I think it's easy to assume that you have mastered all of the techniques inside the book, but really, you bring together the work of many people. So, uh, thank you for providing that resource for those who want to try needle felting with their skies.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm inspired to try new techniques and new kind of rugs as a result of putting this book together as well.
Yeah, it is incredibly inspiring. Um, the third question that we have, what is the best way to determine the sky's color? In my opinion, the sky has to come first for water scenes, but what do other people think?
Well, this feels like another chicken and egg question. I'm not sure there's a best way, right, to determine this because there are many different approaches people might have, including maybe placing all of the colors that they think they are going to use for the rug. They place them all together, kind of place all their wool pieces down around the rug to see how the colors go together, to see how colors might change slightly once other colors are put next to them, and so on. If we're talking specifically about a rug that also includes a sky's reflection in the water, which quite a few people hooked when they were hooking sunsets or sunrises, most people hooked the sky first and then hooked the reflection in the water. But there was one person who hooked the reflection in the water first, which I thought was super interesting because I just assumed that you would hook, kind of the dominant main sky first, followed by the water. And a few people talked about how they approached those different perspectives on the sky. One that was a nighttime sky called Into the Mystic by Nancy Meyer. She noted that her water's color was deliberately duller and darker than the color of the sky. Mary Hayes, who hooked a very dramatic sunrise, which is called Sunrise Morning Star, she says she used slightly lighter values of her sky's color in the water. And then there was another really interesting one. It was called Island Sunrise by Sarah Judith, and she noted how the sky's colors were echoed in the sorry, she noted how the water's colors echoed the sunrise colors, but still looked different because she used a different hooking technique for both. So in Sarah's rug, she punched hooked the sky and then she hooked the water, and that made them look slightly different from each other too. So you can also make the sky and reflection in the water look different just by virtue of how you've hooked it. And probably the materials as well. Like you could have
Mhm.
the same colors, but you've used yarn in one place and wool strips in another.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about the different ways that people have approached that, especially when you said like doing the water before the sky. That sounds incredibly challenging.
But it worked for that person.
Okay, our next one says, someone said, would love to hear more about dyeing techniques for sky materials.
Wow. Well, there are so many different kind of dye techniques that can be used for skies. A person could use spot dyed materials. They could use painting techniques. They could use different types of casserole dyeing techniques. Um, and it's kind of beyond the scope of our conversation here to get into details about that. But I think one really helpful part of the book is Mary Jo Child's um, rug, which is called I Do, and it's in the Sunrise Sunset section. She was very kind enough to provide a web address, a URL, where she actually documents her whole process with lots of photographs. And that was for a painting technique, how she painted the wool for her sky. So that's one way that people can get a little bit more detail. I encourage people to look at, just take note of all the different dye techniques that are described in the book, and maybe keep an eye out for articles that are coming out in Rug Cooking Magazine, or look at past issues in Rug Cooking Magazine that talk about various dyeing techniques. Um, and then contact your guild, contact the people that you hook with, the groups you hook with, and see if you can have some dyeing workshops, or ask for new dyeing techniques to be offered by your guilds.
Well, speaking of guild-hosted events, that sort of leads into our next question. How can my guild host a Hooking Skies themed event? I know you have a couple of speaking engagements planned for the book so far.
Hmm.
Um, you might not be able to go everywhere. So for people who are interested in doing an event centered around this book, what do you have to say?
Well, I can't travel very far. Um, I don't know. That's a new question for me. We've got technologies where if they would like, me to talk a little bit with them, we can use Zoom and a projection machine and a computer. I don't know. Do you have any suggestions about how people might create those kind of
Well,
events?
I
I love
wonder
the
if
idea.
they could sort of frame it as a book club and come together and talk about some of the different techniques that they see in the book, talk about their favorites, and maybe kind of brainstorm ways to, they could do like a project centered around the book and all, bring their interpretation of skies. I think that could be fun.
I like that. I like the idea of kind of approaching it as a book club.
Hmm.
And some guilds have a lot of members, so then you could just separate out into small groups and have some conversations, and maybe as a result of that kind of gathering, the large group comes together and finds out what each group was talking about in their small group, and maybe a rug cooking challenge or idea emerges for the guild out of that. And then we'll see even more sky rugs in the future.
Yes. Um, well, let's look at some of the rugs from the book because you had more materials than you could include, including like some behind the scenes photos or photos of the inspiration for different rugs. So,
Hmm.
would you be willing to share some of those photos with us?
Absolutely. And as I said in the introduction, I had some of that background material, but I made the decision to try to get as many rugs into the book as possible. So I couldn't get those in, but we can share them now. So let's see. I'm going to share some background details for 15 rugs that are in the book. And so can you just let me know, Caitlin, is that showing up in
Yep.
presentation mode now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So this is one from the Sunny chapter by Luann Ayres, and it was adapted from a Red Vineyard at Arles by Vincent van Gogh. And the really interesting thing about this one is that she only hooked a part of the sky. She took the right top corner, kind of going down about 3/4 of the way down, to capture that beautiful reflection in the water, as well as some of the land. And she hooked it so effectively, and you can see she's got the sky kind of radiates around the sun in the same way that it does in the Van Gogh painting. So I love how this shows it. If you love an image, you don't have to hook the whole image. You can just pick a part of it. This is one of my rugs, and I just wanted to show you the beautiful photograph that was taken by my friend Robert Short, who gave me permission to adapt it. I was really struck by the diagonal clouds that were emanating out from behind the lighthouse, and the fact that the photograph was taken from the water and showed the land in this very unusual viewpoint. So I wanted to just show you the reference photo for that. Oh, this one was amazing. This is Suzanne Flint's Totality, All Eyes on the Sky, about the total eclipse last year. And I was really privileged to be able to see images of this rug as it was being hooked in real time. She kept sending me updates on it. And she used different abrashed wool pieces that she had dyed personally. She dyed 10 different pieces. Um, they were all varying shades of blue with different amounts of yellow in them. So you can see in this middle image here, at the bottom, there were a few pieces that had much more yellow in them, and then she started to bring in a little bit of blue, and more blue here, but still a little bit of yellow, a little bit of yellow on this next one up, and then it's just transitioning into the darker blues. So I love being able to see that example of the dyeing before it was actually hooked. And then this example on the right shows her in progress, one of her in progress images. And Suzanne is a person who specifically stated that she deliberately uses a multi-directional style of hooking in her skies as well. So I just love this rug. This is another one of my rugs, and I wanted to show you again the reference source. I joined a couple of Facebook groups about the Northern Lights, so I could start to see some amazing photographs. And this one, I was just really struck by the shapes of the Northern Lights and by the kind of muted pinkish purple colors in it. And so I reached out to Felix to ask him if he would give me permission to hook it, and he said yes. And so this is my version on the left, and I kind of maintain the sloped in angles of the trees to show you that I'm looking up at the sky, and I deliberately hooked some of the center elements with different flubby yarn and textures to make it stand out. And he was really happy to see the final version. This one came together really quickly for me.
It's almost hard to believe that the image on the right there is a photograph
Yeah, yeah,
from where I am.
I
It's
know.
so colorful.
Well, I have another amazing reference photo that of Northern Lights that I'm going to be hooking this year. I can't say anything about it. People will be blown away if I can pull it off because the photograph that was taking is just absolutely unbelievable. And I'm just going to tease you with that and not say
Oh,
anything more.
that's
Yeah. Oh no,
exciting.
it's amazing. Maybe I'll show you privately afterwards, Caitlin.
Okay.
Um, so this one here by Luann Ayres again is a beautiful rendition of a painting by Odilon Redden called Flower Clouds. And look at how she was able to capture all those beautiful multicolors in the sky. Isn't that just gorgeous? I'm blown away by that. So I love adapting from people's work, obviously with permission. It's just a different kind of challenge to represent the work that someone else has already done. This one is super cool by Susan Melk, and it's called Beaver Moon. And she sent me the original image as well as a watercolor painting that she did as a transitional stage. And I was amazed to see that the colors that she had in her rug were the colors she saw in the photograph she'd
Mm.
taken. I mean, look at all those beautiful colors around the moon. I mean, it's just stunning. And then, it's super interesting to see that intermediate stage where she used watercolors to help her plan her colors for the sky. And I know that other people do that. I know that some people use pastels to create an image as well. So just a
Right. When you
gorgeous,
see the
gorgeous
rug, you
moon.
think
Yeah.
like, oh, this is an interpretation where she's adding in some extra colors to embellish it. And then
Yeah,
when you see the original, no, those are present.
there really was it. I know it
Yeah.
was amazing. Yeah, so cute. This is a really vibrant and a very large a rug that I saw. It was either last year or the year before at Rug Hooking School here in Nova Scotia, which is put on by the Rug Hooking Guild of Nova Scotia. And again, we're seeing the reference photo for Wendy's sunset at Lake Rumsey, number one. And I love how at the top of her sky, she hooked the sky diagonally coming out from the sun's kind of representing the sun's rising rays. Just a beautiful one and quite large. This one again was super interesting to be able to see the original photo that influenced the rug, which then made its way onto what's called the red chair. I was amazed to see, the really dark clouds and the bright yellow and the reds in between. And she really, stayed true to that original photograph, but in such a creative way. And she said she got a little creative on the top of the chair here and started changing some of the clouds. I think on the back of the chair, some of the clouds are actually sheep. So she had fun with that. But what an amazing photograph. She rummaged through a lot of photographs she had taken and she found that one. She said, that's the one I want to use.
Mm.
This is a beautiful, very different kind of sunrise or sunset created by Trish Johnson. And it's just showing you on the right that she placed part of the image of her son who's playing the violin over her very softly dyed wool fabric just to see how it would look before she dyed it. And I do want to point out that Trish is a person who often whips her rugs with the same colors that are used in the rug as well. So the sky extends out into the whipped edges, which is just beautiful. So she had to hook all of these, horizontally in lines, and that must have been quite a challenge, especially
Mm.
around all these perfectly shaped musical notes. Mary Jo Child's rug I Do is the one that I said she provided a URL for that shows her technique. This rug was 36 inches long or 37 inches long with the whipping. So it was quite a wide sky. And she used the painted rug hooking technique. And she needed to paint 12 feet of fabric in order to have enough wool to hook this sky. So you can see the very long piece on the right-hand side of how she approached the dyeing, obviously very carefully protecting her table, or there may be multiple tables that are put together there.
Like she has a very long countertop.
I know. I mean, maybe that's multiple tables. I don't know, but very impressive. So you need to have a lot of space to do this. And again, like she's very graciously documented the whole process online. And the next page, I'll show you a couple of other photographs from that URL. And one thing I noticed in her online description was at one point there was some dyeing, and it might have been, I don't know if it was for the sky or not, because she's talking about more than just the sky in on the website. But at one point, she had some colors that had come out a bit too vibrant for her liking. And she said she reduced the vibrancy of those colors by dipping the wool into Tide. And I'm not quite sure what that means. I'd want to know a little bit more about that, but that was interesting to hear.
Hmm.
And then these are just two images of how she was planning as she was going along. So in the one on the left, here's an example of how she put all the different colors, just kind of lay them out, all her pieces of wool onto the a table in the shapes that they would appear in her rug to see how they all look together. And then on the right, we see that 12 feet piece of beautifully painted wool, and she's scrunched up to see how it will look in the sky. So very cool to see. Just a beautiful, calming rug. And that this particular rug photo we put on the back of the book on the back cover as well. This is a rug in the Overcast chapter, another beautiful adaptation from Van Gogh called Le Moulin de la Galette, 1886. And now it's possible. So I found this image online. It's possible that, sometimes images look a little different depending on what computer you're on and so on. It's possible that the one that Carla was working on was maybe a little darker, looked a little bit grayer. But anyways, this is clearly the image that she was working from. It's clear that it's a Van Gogh painting that's been adapted. It's clear that Carla has hooked her own interpretation of it, and it's beautiful. And this was the influence of Janet Connor, who was her teacher in the workshop she was taking, who really encouraged the class members to be more loose in their interpretations of the paintings, not to feel like they had to absolutely be, married to the original content, the design or the colors. Just make it their own, and it's still very clear that it's a beautiful adaptation of a Van Gogh painting. So I just love the sky in this, all the different shades of gray, and there's, I think, just some really slight colors in there as well. Just love
The
that.
color change gives it a pretty different mood.
Exactly. And that's one of the values of the sky, right? Like picking the right sky really sets the mood for your rug. Yeah, it's just gorgeous. This this is my hurricane watching rug, which came from a photograph I took as my husband and I were watching a hurricane blow in to Halifax and into Nova Scotia. And we are all set with what we call here in Nova Scotia our storm chips, ready to munch on chips as a storm comes in. And we were relaxing, sitting up with our feet on the windowsill, and I thought, oh, this would be a cute photograph after I saw that my cat was licking her tongue. And I started trying to hook the feet and the legs in, and then I quickly thought, no, those are gone. I'm moving those out. It was too hard to put in. And so again, change what you feel needs to be changed from your reference image, and make it your own. And I think it works just fine without the people's feet in the
Mhm.
image. My cat Luna has been hooked once or twice, no, two or three times at this point. And I also use some very beautiful spot dyed wools for the stormy sky. So I first hooked in little shapes to indicate blowing wind and whatnot, and also fleeting rain. And then I took photos of my pieces of wool before I hooked them, and that was a great idea. So I used a variety of spot dyed wools, and I had purchased these at Solder Village that year. This is Laura Pierce's beautiful Golden Gate sunrise, showing the original photograph that she used. And she felt like there was kind of like a parallelogram shape in this big cloud that she had seen. And that was what influenced her, as well as this article she had read about stylistic hooking that influenced her to hook this very creative sky in parallelogram shapes and in different colors. And oh, just super, super cool. I love this. I saw it in person at Sauter Village. It was gorgeous. Lots of lots of water in this one as well, of course, but it's very clear that the sky plays a central role.
And it's fun that the water is reflecting the colors of the sky that are not realistic to the photo, but the
Yeah,
reflection is still at play.
yeah, and those colors, you know, they're I think they're slightly different values of the colors as well. And of course, she wants to distinguish between the dark side of the water and the light side where the reflection is really coming through. And I'm wondering if this is Alcaraz here. And then this one is in the abstract chapter, and this is Barb Murray's Pit Pond, which was, as I mentioned, it was created in response to a call for submissions for an exhibit called My Town, or maybe it's Our Town, by the Rug Hooking Museum of North America. And she hooked this to commemorate the 1958 mining disaster that occurred in Spring Hill, which they refer to as the Bump. And so she's hooked this incredibly emotional sky into the rug, which is really central to the whole image because it's meant to portray this idea of the town is moving on. We're healing from this terrible disaster. Um, the miners are looking down on us. They're seeing us playing and spending time in this beautiful park that was once used for the mining process. And they're able to see that we're doing okay and we're moving on and we're developing a sense of peace from this terrible tragedy that's developed. And so I'll show you a couple of close-ups on the next slide. This is a close-up of the coal mine that she hooked into the upper right corner. And she used a very old photograph to help put that together. And then on the left side, she hooked in an image of there's a coal miner statue in the center of town. And then she also hooked in this beautiful image of a coal miner's head with the hat on and the light. And she hooked the sky, you know, emanating diagonally from the miner's head to give more of this heavenly feeling, you know, to that part of the sky. And it really is just so effective. I mean, it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous rug. And I loved hearing her story that she shared with me about the event and about the rug as well. I actually visited Barb in Spring Hill this summer, and she took me on this long tour of the town and showed me all the different places connected to the mines, and we went to the park, and it was just an amazing visit. And she was such a beautiful host. And then this is the last one. This is an example from the deep space or the outer space chapter, Heather Gordon's Black Hole M87. And it's showing you two close-ups, one on this slide and the next. She used so many textures in this rug. And this is the fun of being able to see something up close because it looks very different, right? So
Yes.
she used wool roving, hand spun wool yarns, silk, bamboo, metallic synthetic yarns, and cording, and those close-ups really show that. So this one on the right is a close-up of kind of the surrounding sky. And then this one shows part of the black hole, and you can see all the amazing textures that are used in that. So super cool. And that's the end of this short slide presentation.
Thank you for sharing those images with us.
You're welcome.
Especially because, it would be a shame for them not to be seen when they're so like illustrative to the work that is behind the rugs.
Hmm.
Okay, so before we bring this to a conclusion, we have a fun question from a reader. Will there be a Hooking Skies 2? I feel like this
Well,
is a
I've
question for
seen,
both of us.
yeah, yeah, I like a couple of people have noted on social media, we should have a second one, and I'm sorry I missed the call. I would have loved to have submitted my work, and it really has been fun to, I think, build a sense of community through gathering all the different rugs from people both in Canada and in the United States and in a few other places around the world. Um, so the answer to that question, who knows? Stay tuned. I could envision a part two down the road. It could be similar to this. It could also be different. I could envision a part two that would have fewer rugs, but then would also have space for this background detail, right? Of how
Mm.
the rugs were created. So it could include background photographs and more detail about the techniques. So I would say for people who like hooking rugs or for people who are now inspired, sorry, for people who like to hook skies and for people who are now inspired to hook more sky centered rugs, um, take lots of photographs of your works in progress, document your works in progress, take really good photos of the rugs when they're finished, um, take photographs of dyeing techniques you've used, write down notes about the dyeing techniques you've used, write notes about how the rug is progressing, how you're feeling about it, things you might change as you were going along. And so if there is a call down the road for another version of this book, you have all the materials available to send me. And I'd love to see your work.
Yes, and this leads me into a great conclusion. If you're interested in seeing more of these sky rugs, learning about hooking skies, purchase the book Hooking Skies. It's available on Amazon and at rughookingmagazine.com. And if we if there's a lot of interest, then there may very well be a part two.
Ah, good
So,
point. And it's Hooking Skies, the sky's the limit, the full
yep,
title. Yeah,
yep, thank you. Thanks for joining me, and thank you to those who submitted questions. This has been great.
it's been fun. I've enjoyed it. Great
All right,
questions.
bye.
Thank you, Caitlin. Bye.